What's up, people? This your boy, Humble Dad. Welcome back to another edition of the Humble Dad podcast. This is going to be a good one. Uh, this introduction is very special to me. Me and this dude have been rocking with each other for quite a long time. Matter of fact, one of those times was living in India, and we could talk about that for days. The things that we were able to learn about each other. He was very inspirational for me in my growth as becoming a manager and just a leader in general. Matter of fact, what was cool about India was that I knew that his wife was pregnant before he did, and that was a very incredible experience to have with him. And we've been not connected, but connected all through these years, and I'm so glad to have him on board. He's a leader in his community, his church, his family, and everywhere else in between. I want to welcome none other than Mr. Patrick to the stage. What's up, bro?
Hey, what's going on, Elijah? Man, thanks for having me. It's exciting to be here with you. I know we've been trying to connect for a minute, and now we've made it happen. So it's exciting to be able to talk to you.
That's what's up. I'm glad that you was able to kind of get your schedule to move forward because sometimes, at night I have to adjust with the kids.
No, absolutely.
Yeah, you know how it goes. So I appreciate your flexibility for sure.
Absolutely.
So let's get into it. First question is, what do you think the difference between a father and a dad is?
The difference between a father and a dad. That's a really good question. And for me, I think the difference is a father. Basically, you make the baby, right? So anybody can be a father, but someone that to me is a dad is someone that is there for their kids, that's connected, that has a relationship. And is in their kids' lives, right, and has a positive influence on shaping their mindset and the way that they approach life, right? So anybody, in my opinion, can be a father. Any man can be a father, but it takes a special person to be a dad and to be connected with their kids, right? And that doesn't mean that I always get it right, that I'm the perfect dad. I make mistakes, and I've got a 15-year-old daughter, and I'm still growing and learning how to parent her well, and I've got a son that's 9, and I'm still learning how to parent him well. So, really, from my perspective, that's the big key difference there.
That's what's up. So let's go back as with the information that you've kind of elaborated on. Let's go back to when you were a kid. No,
no, we can. Yeah.
Oh. Oh, okay. I see. You were directing traffic for sure. No worries. So talk to me about when you were, anywhere from kindergarten through 6th, 7th, 8th grade, what type of kid you were and who was your role model, father figure, or dad in your life?
Yeah. So I've got a really unique, kind of childhood. Just to kind of give you just a kind of brief overview of kind of my upbringing. So my dad was a pastor of a church. So I was born in Virginia. And my dad was a pastor of a church in Susan, Virginia, and I was born in Hampton. And I can't remember what age I was, probably between like 2 and 3. My dad made a decision that he was going to join the Army, right? And so he joined the Army, and because he was a pastor, he joined the Army as a chaplain. And so became a chaplain in the Army. We came to Fort Hood like in the early 80s. My sisters were born here in Texas in 81. And then we moved to Germany, to New Jersey, where the chaplain school was at the time, in Fort Monmouth, and then Fort Stewart, Georgia, where my parents are originally from, Georgia, and then back to Texas. So kind of my formative years, Virginia, Texas, Germany, it was really unique in that I had the opportunity to live in different places and to connect with like different, cultures. And people. Like Germany was probably my favorite place of all the places that we lived. I loved living in Germany. But in terms of like my upbringing, like my parents were, I come from a nuclear family, right? Where my mom and dad were both, they were married, and they were both connected and a part of our life. My dad, obviously with the military and being in the Army and being a chaplain, he had responsibilities there, right? But I do feel like that he made the effort to really connect with us as kids and to be there, which was important, right? And him being in the Army gave us unique experiences that a lot of kids did get the opportunity to experience. So,
so what do you remember? Some of the things about what he said during those times, or what events that you could share that you remember the most with him? I know your mom was there, but
Yeah.
kind of explain to me, like, what was it like having a military dad as a, as an adolescent?
Yeah. So my dad is very doesn't use a lot of words, right? So a lot of what I got from him was just kind of watching him, right?
Okay.
So just watching the way that he served people. That was
Mm.
something that I always really admired about him. Because we had a church when we were in Hoensfeld, Germany. There was a church that it was a small base, and so he was really responsible for making sure that there were things that connected people to Christ in a meaningful way, and having events and stuff. But also outside of that, just connecting with people outside of the church, right? I just always saw him, doing really great work in terms of like servant leadership and serving people. So that's something that I really admired about him and saw, and just structure, right? So my dad liked things to be a certain way, right?
Yeah.
So, your stuff hung up in your closet the right way, your stuff folded up in your drawers the right way.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. I remember sometimes if stuff was too messy, he would dump it out of our drawers and make us like.
Listen, I might need to do that one.
I'm not suggesting that that's necessarily a good idea, but those are some things I remember. And so it's really weird because I can be very organized and neat, but also I can go through those phases where like my wife is like, man, why did you just throw this stuff on the chair? Like, I'm like,
Hey, I still remember India, Doc, with the socks. I was like,
the Tamara likes things to be in a particular order, right? But I got that from my dad, right? So just seeing how and also how he just loved my mom, right? Like even today, I say my dad is Huck from Driving Miss Daisy. Like he drives my mom everywhere, like, but he serves my mom really well, and he loves our family and serves our family. Like the way he connects with his mother. So we would go home to Georgia whenever we could, like almost every summer, with the exception of when we were in Germany. We would go to Macon, Georgia every summer. And, she would say, son, go out there and cut the grass. And he would just, yes, ma'am, go out there and cut the grass. Or if she needed something to be done. So just understanding, number one, respecting, those people that our parents, our mothers and fathers that came before us and made sacrifices that sometimes are unseen and that we don't know. But also just that respect level of how much he loved his mom and took care of his mom and his family.
That's what's up, man. So I can attest to the parts of where you're saying what you saw from your dad, just speaking on you as an individual, like the way that, because I don't think you spoke a lot, when you was my leader, but it was that I saw how you carried yourself. And so you move in a presence that you were humble, but yet you knew not to cross you in a negative way, right? So that sounds like what it is, what your dad was, an individual that didn't speak a lot, but you knew that he was the authority in the room.
Yeah, it's interesting because my wife and my mom now say, like, and even my sisters are saying, like, your dad, right? And sometimes you're like, okay, I don't see it, but like they're like, oh, you just like dad.
But that's a compliment though, right? Yeah. To some people, that's not right. Like, if somebody said you like your dad and that dude wasn't a good dude.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I mean, I take it as a compliment, but sometimes I don't see it because I'm like, really?
That's because you're a humble dude, though. That's really what it is, And I couldn't think of. I think of other people, but when I have been trying to get at you, because I seen your humility, you know what I mean, and like you're the guy that I would want to be as a humble dude, you know what I'm saying? So like humble dad is not who I am; it's what I'm trying to aspire to be, you know what I'm saying? And so so as we talk about that, like when you see, because it sounds like your dad is humble, because if he's serving all of these people, like when did you recognize his servitude? Was it just that young of an age? Yeah. And then when did you take it and say, okay, this needs to be a part of what I do?
Yeah, so that's interesting. I know, like when I was in high school, for an example, when we were in Fort Stewart, Georgia, he was the chaplain for the MP Brigade, but also there was a church on post that he was responsible for. So there were times when I was a kid where he couldn't come to like basketball games. My mom was always there because she was a teacher at my school, because he had responsibilities kind of outside of just being the chaplain for the MPs, he also had the church, right? So think of like, having Bible study on Wednesdays and choir practice and things like that go on in a normal church. You still have to facilitate that. So in a lot of ways, he had two jobs. So when I was younger, sometimes I didn't really understand it, right? I'm like, oh man, I wish my dad was here. And when he could be there, he would be there. And my mom was, always there for the games and stuff like that. But now that I'm older, I realize, particularly like when you're in the ministry and you're serving others, like sometimes your family also is serving with you in kind of a different way, right? Where sometimes you're giving up that family member, your father or your mother, depending on who's serving in the ministry, where that time that you sometimes would like to have, they're giving it to others. It's a delicate balance, right? Because you want to, your first ministry is at home, and you want to take care of your family first, but also just seeing how, like when people needed, like if they had a death in the family or something tragic happened, or they're in the hospital, him just being, there for their families as best he could, right? To make sure that they had the spiritual support that they needed, but also that someone was just there for them to give them a listening ear. So I think
doing that. So that was high school. So then we get to college, and we was there together for several years. I may be a little bit older than you, but we were definitely there around the same time.
Right. Sure. Yeah, because I think when I got there in '98, you were already there. So I think maybe you got there in
96. I got in '96. Okay, so so '96, you there in '98. So in college, like, what was the experience of having? I mean, now you're very much distant from your dad as far as location. Yeah. Like, how did y'all build and stay in tune with your relationship there?
Yeah, so I think, for me in college is where I probably better connected with my dad than I did like early on. So as an example, like, maybe I was a mama's boy, maybe I wasn't, but like, so when I got to college, I would talk to my mom often, but when I would say, okay, mom, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z, her response normally would be, okay, you don't need to do that. You just need to stay in the dorms, and just like the safety of, you need to stay here. I don't want you to get hurt or do anything outside of it. But the conversation with my dad would always be, okay, let's put together a pros and cons list. Let's, list out all the things of, okay, here are all the reasons why you should do this, and here are all the reasons why you shouldn't do it. And then just really help and guide me in making good decisions, right? And not saying you should do X or Y, but saying, okay, here is a good way to make good decisions. And number one, what does God say about it? Have you prayed about it? Have you talked to him about it? But also, have you made out a list, right? So that you're just not making a decision without thinking about it. Like, what financial resources do you need? Do you have the financial resources to be able to move out and have an apartment? You're going to have to get furniture. Do you have money for that? It's just all those little things that my mom was like, no, you don't need to do it. But my dad was like, okay, let's list out. And then if that's something that you really want to do, what is it going to take to be able to do that? And how do you plan to be able to accomplish that goal? Right. And so I think that was something that I really appreciate and learn from him, during my college days.
That's what's up. So then when you get to the point of meeting your wife, like, what did he have any, I know not necessarily in choosing her, but like, when did he meet her, and what was the response of, like, you saying that you're getting ready to marry? Was that a conversation at all that you had with your pops?
Yeah, for sure. So like, he met Tamra pretty early on, because we started dating probably like the second semester after I got to SFA.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that would have been '99.
Yeah.
Right? So we were friends for a while. Right? we were friends. As a matter of fact, my brother and sister-in-law yesterday gave me a hard time. They were like, "You remember when you and Tamra were just friends?" Right? So we went a long time where we were just friends, but probably didn't officially start dating until maybe like that summer or fall of '99 when we came back, right? But so I'm trying to remember when she actually came. I think it was, so they used to do for my dad's church like an appreciation service where they do like an appreciation weekend and like a banquet and stuff like that. So I took Tamra back, for that, and she got to meet, people at church and stuff like that. So my dad is not one to weigh in unless it's something that's like real, that's a danger zone, right? He kind of lets you navigate and learn lessons on your own. But I remember him saying to Tamra, one time, like, you make my son a better person, right? And so at that point, I kind of knew, like, okay, if my dad sees that in her, right? That this is someone that I can, have a long-term relationship and marry at one point in my life.
That's what's up.
We're
That's
married.
what's up. I remember you all dating. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And the interactions that y'all would have with each other, they would just seem to be very natural. Like it wasn't like a forced thing, right? I remember that, and and then being able to live with you in India showed me a whole different side of who you were as a man and how she operated, because everybody always seen y'all differently as opposed to what it actually was, right? And I think that's a very much of a testament to you being just cool with who you are. You know what I'm saying? You wasn't concerned about the outside world. And what it sounds like to me was that your dad had a big role in that you're being confident and calculated in whatever your decision is. And so not to be moved off of whatever it is that you feel is right, as long as you have all the information, all that matters is how you execute it and how you feel about it, and not anybody else. Would you say that that's pretty accurate?
Yeah, that's accurate for sure, because I know, like in my dad's career, he was a chaplain, right, in the Army. And I know that there were some decisions that he had to make in his career, right? So he retired, he was a major, but he had an opportunity to be a lieutenant colonel. And, there were some decisions that he had to make that were, in the best interest of, number one, the family, but also in terms of like serving soldiers, where, some people disagree with that, right? And and we talk about it now, but it affected his career, right? And at the time we're kids, we didn't really understand the sacrifice, but he really, my dad is a person of principle, right? So he stands on his principle, and regardless of what the consequence is, he's going to do what he believes God is leading him to do and what he believes is the right thing to do, right? So, understanding that God always provides, regardless of, what the world says. Okay, if you do this, you're gonna, have riches, or people are gonna appreciate you and love you and all this stuff. But sometimes you're gonna make decisions where it doesn't necessarily seem like it's the right thing to do, because you're sacrificing something, right? And I saw him do. He basically sacrificed his military career. Now God has provided after that, right? He, probably a couple years after he retired from the military, he started a church in Killeen, and it's doing very well, and he pastors, and that's something that God put on his heart to do, is to open that church. But those couple of years after he retired, I mean, there was some sacrifices that he had to make. Like he was, working as a TA in a school, right? And he was just doing things like that to make sure that we had the resources we need, because my sisters were still in school. I was just, going to college. So, just seeing that and understanding that now, the sacrifice that he made by standing on a principle and making sure that, hey, I'm going to do the right thing regardless of what the consequence is. Like, that's hard to do, right? When you have a family and there's financial resources at stake, that's not an easy thing to do. And I don't think I appreciated it then, but looking back on it now, it's something that I really appreciate and understand.
That's what's up. When you get to y'all get married, you and Tamara get married, and then baby number one, I was there.
Yeah.
Walk me through, or other people through, like the when you heard or saw that you was about to be a pops.
Yeah, so that's really interesting. So as you remember, we were in India, right? So you and Stephen were there. So Tamara and I had gone to India and helped launch a couple of the programs, but we were only there for like maybe 4 weeks or something. I can't remember how long we were there. And then you and Stephen came, and then we showed up. Our intent was never to get pregnant in India. I'll say that.
Okay.
That was never the plan, right?
Yeah.
So that wasn't the plan. So anyway, I remember that night we were playing cards or something like that, and we were sitting around the table, and I remember Tamara giving me something to read, and you're sitting there with the camera recording, and I'm sitting here reading this poem, and at first it doesn't click, right? And then once it clicks, I'm like excited. I think I run up the stairs and I'm like jumping around. I don't even think I gave Tamara a hug, or like
you did. You did.
I'm like jumping around, like, woo, I'm gonna be a dad.
Like you did it by yourself.
Yeah. You're very excited, like definitely like really excited to be a father, and to those were the things going through my mind. But then like afterwards, I'm like, okay, we're in India. Like, what are we gonna do? Like, just those things, like how am I gonna make sure I take care of my wife and all those things as you're, kind of starting the pregnancy and eating right and, finding a doctor, all those things, start to, come in your mind. But the initial thought was like, man, that's really excited. Like it was jumping up and down. I was so excited.
Absolutely. And she milked it too when we was there.
Yeah.
I remember that. She milked that pregnancy. She
Yeah.
was like, hey, listen. But she was so helpful as a mother too. You know what I'm saying? That motherly instinct kicked in and how she took care of us as well. So, it was one of I always revisit that moment in my mind of how you were, how Tamara were, and how y'all marriage was. And so, like, you talked about how you saw your dad love your mom. And it seems to be evident in how you love Tamara from my perspective, which is pretty dope. So then you get to the point, baby's born. Okay. Talk to me. I like to hear the stories of like the day that the kid was born. Like, do you remember that day? Any of the two kids, but like the first one, like walk me through the process.
Yeah. So I definitely remember that day. So we were living in Nacogdoches at the time because we had, got back from India. So we were living in Nacogdoches. So like all our family was down. So like my mom and dad were there. Her mom, her aunt, her sister, her grandmother, they all, came from like the Dallas area to be there for Tamara. So it's really interesting. Tamara gives me a hard time about this. So, she's just sitting in the bed. We're just waiting, right? It's just a waiting game. Normally it's like you got the medicine, you're waiting for the baby to come. So it's just like anticipation. So I'm really nervous and I've got like a lot of nervous energy. And so we had to get up really early.
Nervous?
We could talk about it later, but believe it or not, I'm a very nervous person.
Okay.
You can even ask my leader at eTech, Kayleen, she will tell you that I'm before a presentation, like I don't eat because my stomach will get upset. So okay. I'm a very
hide it well, bro.
I try to hide it well. So anyway, so I'm very, kind of nervous and anxious, and I'm hungry, right? And so I'm like, let's go get something to eat. So my wife is resting, she's got medicine. So I'm like, the baby's not coming anytime soon. I'm hungry, let's go get something to eat. So I'm trying to remember where we went to eat, somewhere in Nacogdoches, one of the restaurants there. So we went to go eat. So I spent some time with my parents. My wife gives me a hard time. Like, you left me sitting in the bed to go eat, but I can't eat. And you went to go have like shrimp and French fries while I'm sitting here in the bed. Yeah. So
that's about right.
So we go throughout the day. Madison was born like around 3, p.m. like in the afternoon. So I just remember like I actually was the first person to hold her. So the doctor let me hold her, and then he was like, "Do you want to cut the umbilical cord?" But I was just too nervous. I was like, "No." He's like, "Well, hold her up." So I basically was like the first person to like touch her, like as her whole body was out, right? So I was looking at her and just fell in love like instantly. And I remember, so they take her to where the nursery and they get her cleaned up. So all of us, my wife still gives me a hard time about this. All of us, like her grandma, the only person that stayed back was her grandmother. So we all left to go. I'm sitting there staring at her in the nursery. I'm just like so like in love, right?
Yeah.
Like, here's my daughter, and we get back to the room, and her grandmother is like, Tamara was sick, and I was the only one here. I don't think I'll ever live that down, but
you can't.
But that day was just so amazing, like seeing her, like in Madison, like the first 2 days in the hospital, she tricked us because she was such a calm baby. She was calm.
Aren't they always?
Man, and then we got her home, like after a couple of days, she didn't stop crying for 2 years.
Hey, bro, it's different. Like at the hospital, man, everything is so gravy. You're like, oh, okay, this is how it's gonna be. Okay, I can deal with this. You get home, you're like, this ain't even close to what it was, man.
And we didn't know how to take care of a baby, right? So it's our first kid, and so man, it was a blessing because my mom ended up staying. I can't remember. She stayed for like a week, and my dad ended up just leaving and coming back because he had some stuff at church that he needed to take care of. So he left my mom there, and I remember when he came back to get my mom. My wife and I, we sat there on the couch and we cried because we were like, what are we going to do? Because my mom was like cooking breakfast for us. She was cooking meals. She was taking care of us. We were like, how are we going to do all this stuff and take care of a baby?
That's hilarious.
So we survived, but it was just a I
It was
remember,
nerve-wracking.
yeah, it was never. I remember her being born, and like those few weeks after, like how like nervous we were, and how like, man, are we going to be good parents? Like, how do we pull this off? We're so tired, and taking care of a baby and all this stuff is so. And then we were in Nacogdoches, so all of our family was either in Killeen or Dallas, so we didn't have any like family there locally. So it was like, man, we're kind of on our own. But man, it was good, definitely good memories. Definitely good memories.
So now you get to the point you have a son. Like, talk to me about that, bro. Because I had a girl first, then a boy second, and then another boy, and then another girl. So talk to me about that moment. You knew you.
Yeah. So there's a 6-year age difference between the two. Yeah. And part of it was we got traumatized from all the crying at Madison Gates.
So we gotta wait.
She was beating us up. she was hazing us. So, she gave us such a hard time.
That's a very good analogy.
So when I found out that Tamara was pregnant, and that was really exciting because it was a kind of a new transition for us, a new start. We had moved to Dallas in like 2010, so I found out that she was pregnant with him like in 2011. So we actually had like a housewarming party and had family and friends over, to the house. And I didn't know this, right? So we're all kind of gathered around. We're asking my dad to like pray for our house, and we've got, we're in a big circle. And Tamara was like, I know that, the whole house building process, I was really, difficult to live with, and it was hard. And so she gives me this gift, and it's a box. And so I'm thinking it's like, I don't know what it is. So I'm opening up the box, and it's a pregnancy test. Oh, wow. It's a pregnancy test, and it's so I find out in front of like family and friends that she's pregnant, and obviously didn't know if it was a boy or a girl at the time. So that's how I found out she was pregnant. And then we found out the sex. We all go, and my daughter, she really wanted a baby sister, right? Of course. My wife and I both wanted a boy. We were like, we really want a boy, and that will kind of tie it up for our family. We were like, okay, if it's a boy, we're done, right? Boy and a girl, and we're good. Yeah. So my daughter wanted a baby sister, so she cried. But when I found out it was a boy, I was so excited.
Geeking.
Yes, I was really, really excited. So I tried to convince my wife to name him after me. I didn't win that battle, but his middle name is my name, but okay. his first name is my middle initial. So that was the compromise. But I wanted a junior. I didn't. My wife won that battle.
Now, if he would have been a junior, would you have still called him Patrick?
I call him PJ. I had already had it all figured out.
See, but you wouldn't have called him Patrick though.
So my brother is named after my dad, and he goes by his middle name. So my wife used that as ammunition. Like, okay, your brother
I'm using it as too.
Named after your dad, and you don't even call him his name. You call him his middle name. So what's the point of that? So
that's exactly been my point. I've been saying that. That's why I didn't want to name any of my sons juniors. You know what I'm saying? Because I knew that wasn't going to be a thing, but I was going to be calling them Elijah. Like I wasn't going to be doing that. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So as you get to the point of now you have this nuclear family, what are some things that you've learned about being a dad? In the first moments of having two kids, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Like, what was that like? Or what did you learn at that point in time?
Yeah. Well, number one, there had to be a balance in life, right? Like, both kids need unique things. So, for Madison, and I'm actually in the process right now of re-listening to the 5 love languages.
That's good.
So, just really understanding like what each kid needs, and then early on, right? Baby, what they need is that they need someone to hold them, to feed them, to change them, to keep them warm. So like basic things like that. But also for my daughter, I didn't want her to feel like you got this new baby coming, and all the attention is away from you. We still love you and appreciate you, and there's still you're still just as important as you were before the new child came in. It's interesting. So I'll tell you this little tidbit. The reason that's kind of funny to me is, so I've got younger sisters. They're twins. So I think I know my sisters because they went to school with us, right? So
I don't know if they know me, but I know them.
Yeah. So it's interesting. So when my mom brought the twins home, I was the baby, right? So I got all the attention. Everyone,
Oh, okay, okay. Yeah,
loved
yeah.
on me, and here's little Patrick and stuff like that. And maybe I didn't necessarily remember it, but when she brought the babies home, she said I sat there and looked at them, and I was like, "It's two of them." And she tells a story of me wanting something, and she was feeding the babies, and I told her that she needed to put the babies on the floor. It's like, put them down on the floor. Like, I want what I want right now. So so during that time, I actually spent a lot of time with my my aunt, who wasn't married to my uncle at the same time, but she was living in. She had come to Texas to help my mom take care of the twins, but spent a lot of time with them because it was like she knew I needed attention, but because they had two babies at home, I was gonna receive less attention because
Right.
you're taking care of babies, right? So I was really
Yeah.
sensitive to that. Like when we brought Aiden home, to make sure that I spent quality time with Madison, doing tea parties and things like that. And again, haven't always gotten it right there. I think I connect with my son and daughter in different ways. And so he's a person, quality time is really important to him, and physical touch. So those are
Yeah.
his love languages. Like, he loves hugs. He loves to connect in that way. But my daughter, it's gifts for her. Like, so she's not a huggy, touchy-feely type of person, right?
Okay, okay.
She'll accept the hug, but it's not something that she needs to thrive, right?
Yeah.
But my son he really needs that. So it's really been interesting trying to parent and figure out how to navigate and give them each what they need.
Yeah.
They're very different. Their personalities are very different.
Yeah, I would definitely concur. um, currently Jordana, she needs a lot of hugs and a lot of affection.
Mm,
Because Jen was that for her, right?
mm,
And so I'm having to learn how to do that uh on purpose.
mm,
So if you see me posting with me and her dancing or something like that, that's me doing something that she wants to do, and it makes her feel connected to dad, right?
mm,
Then you have Ethan. His love language is definitely quality time and hugs, right?
mm,
We play hug wars. So whoever gets off you got to get the other person off of you, or whatever. Like, he loves that at any time in the day. Okay.
mm,
Joshua is like quality time. He is also he's a family guy. Even now at the age that he is, he's cool if everybody's in the house and we
mm.
just chilling.
Yeah.
That's him. Gianna, she's one of the I would say that she wants to communicate. She wants to talk about what's going on in her day. She's an avid reader, so she wants to talk about the books that she's reading. She wants to talk about the games that she's playing, and she just wants you to listen. I had asked them how much time do I need to be giving them, and each one of them told me what would be a considerable amount of time for them to feel like they had time with dad, And so what I've done is try to do that. I don't do it as well as I probably could, but that was really something that helped me to kind of gauge if I was doing what it is that they wanted, so that they could see that dad was, was providing the love that they wanted in return, right? And so that love language is definitely something that people need to, dads for sure. Moms, seems to come kind of natural a little bit more with the motherly instinct sometimes, but even just reading that book helped me out as well. So as you said that there are some things that you did well, some things that you haven't done so well. So talk to me about what do you think that you've done well thus far and some of the challenges that you're working on.
So
Going back to the managerial days, right? That sound.
Yeah, so things that I think I do well, obviously, one thing that's important to me as a father is to make sure I provide, I'm a provider for them, right? Like, they have, what they need physically, right? So I think I do that well. I do think that I try to, make connections with them and spend time with them. I don't always get it right. But I do think that I do that well. And also work-life balance, right? Like, one of the things that I've seen a lot of dads make the mistake on is that, being a provider is important, but, sometimes you can make the mistake of overdoing it, right? Where you spend, 12, 14, 16 hours a day, making and creating resources for your family. And that's all good. I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with, pursuing excellence in your work and
Right.
trying to do a good job, but
Yeah.
at what cost, right? So you have to balance that out in terms of, like, you have this really finite amount of time to make an impact on your kids, right?
Right.
So you've got 18 years. And then at that point, like after that, like even up to college, right? I still want my kids to come back and, visit with us and spend time with us. So parenting them well, that's something that I'm trying to, and I'm still working through, making sure that we develop a good enough relationship with our kids to where when they leave the house, they still want to come back home because they have a good relationship with us, right? So that's important. But work-life balance, making sure that I balance my profession versus the time with the kids. And sometimes I don't necessarily always get that right, particularly early on when Madison was born. I went a little bit too far toward the profession because I'm like, okay, I need to, work harder. I need to make more money because I gotta, not just a wife, but also have a kid now that I need to provide for, and just went into overdrive, right? And there were times, probably over a couple of years where I did not do a good enough job of balancing between the two.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Right? So I think it's just really finding. So now for me, like one of the things I think I do really well is having that work-life balance, making sure that my kids know that and my wife know that they're important. Now, sometimes, work things come up that you have to take care of that may interfere with family time. In most cases, it's not a consistent thing, but every once in a while, I think it's okay, right? If you need to take care of something for work, I mean, there are responsibilities that you have to care for.
And they'll understand better too. Like, if it's not a consistent interruption, like they'll understand. That's what I've seen. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I think the biggest opportunity for me, and my daughter actually shared this with me the other day, is just being a better listener, right? So I think for me, like a lot of times, I'm always in this mode of correction, right? Of if they're doing something like, hey, make sure you do this because then this is the reason why, and like going overboard in terms of like explaining, right? Even my wife tells me sometimes, like, you could have said that in like 75 less words. But I just have this tendency to want to, always be in this parenting mode of correction, right? I think particularly as your kids get older, you want to help them navigate in a way where you listen to them and that their feelings are valid, right? You don't want to go too far, right? So this is that delicate balance. But, for my daughter, it's really important for her to be heard and for me to listen to her, right? And so I remember one time she was saying, school is, so hard and, it's hard being a kid, these days. And my response to her was like, man, we live in a nice house, you go to a nice school, you have everything that you need. Like, how can life be hard, right? I think for me, like for her, she heard that I was demeaning what her valid feelings were. And so I've had to do a better job of hearing what she has to say, right? Just listening, not always saying, okay, well, here's the solution. Like sometimes people just want you to hear them out, right? They just want to share with you what's on their heart. And so I've got to do a better job of listening to her and not always being in that correction mode, right?
That's good.
My son, same thing, right? Like, he's a very, very bright kid. He's dyslexic. And so, early on, like when he was learning how to read, I would get very frustrated. I'm like, dude, you using like these big words and you crossing your legs and you're like, how are you using these big words and you can't read like these basic words, right? So I would be really hard on him, like, hey, you're just not trying, right? So once he was diagnosed with dyslexia, I'm still learning a lot about it. My wife, she's a dyslexia therapist in Plano, and so she knows a lot about this, right? And how the brain works and how you process information. But for me, it was really connecting with him and not being so hard on him in that area, right? And even like when he does sports, like he'll have a good game, and then I want to say, okay, Aiden, you could have done this, and you could have, you scored 5 goals, but it could have been 7 if you had kept your head down and had your foot down, right? The right way, instead of saying, what, man, you had an amazing game. I just really appreciated how hard you worked and how you work with your teammates, right? Reinforcing the positive things and not always being in this mode of, trying to, help them be better all the time. Like
managerial mode.
Our kids don't necessarily need, they're happy with us being like, my son, when he sees us at the game, he's like waving. I'm like, pay attention to the game. He's like, he's excited that we're there. He's waving at us, right?
Yeah.
So really understanding that dynamic of our kids want us to be present. They want us to be there. And it doesn't always have to be this thing of me projecting onto them, like how to, this perfect thing, like you need to do this and this and this and this to be better. Like I'm working through that. still.
Yeah, for sure, man. That's the thing, right? That's why the question is asked,
Yeah.
so you can self-evaluate. That's one of the things that has happened for me doing these interviews, is that I've been able to self-evaluate based on what you all say and say, that's something I could definitely do better. And then I've implemented those things, at least one thing from each dad that I would say I'm now a professional dad. You know what I'm saying? Because I think you're interview number 77.
Oh, wow.
And so, and I've interviewed dads that haven't even made it to camera. You know what I'm saying? So just to kind of get an idea of what those things look like to make sure that I'm a better dad, which would in turn help my kids, you know. So I want to say thank you. We're going to get to the point of wrapping this up. But I want to say thank you for the words of wisdom that you've given. And the cool thing about the things that you've said, they have not always, some of the things have been really different than what other people have said, which that means that you can see that everybody parents different, but they all have the same goals, right? And that is to make sure that their kids are, you know, highly functional, productive citizens. And if you're like us, we want them to have the word of God in them and let that be their guide. And, you know, and so with that being said, we're going to, you know, for all those out there, make sure you like, share, subscribe to the channel. And, you know, and this is a dope interview, man. This is what Andrew said. This has been a fantastic conversation. So we're going to get into my questions. Give me a number between 1 and 45.
1 and 45. Man, this is a hard one because you can't see my wall, but I've got Michael Jeffrey Jordan on the wall, and I've got Kobe Bean Bryant on the wall. So
yes, yeah.
Let me go. My 1A in terms of GOAT is Michael Jordan. So let's go with 23.
He would be my somewhere down the line, but whatever. You know what I'm saying?
I know you're a Jordan hater, so that's why I put that out there.
What is your favorite time of the year?
Man, my favorite time of the year is probably Christmas time.
Okay.
It's like the holidays. And that's because like normally I save up my PTO, and my wife's a teacher, right? So she has off like those, you know, last couple of weeks of December kind of going into January. And then the kids are out of school, right? And so that's normally a time that we get to spend a lot of, you know, family time together, you know, hanging out. Spring break would probably be like a close second because, again, we get to spend a lot of family time. But typically over Christmas, we'll spend time here at home as a family doing things. But then we get to see my wife's mom and her family. And then, you know, a couple days after Christmas, normally we'll go see my family, like my mom and dad. And they're, you know, for them, it's really important for like all the kids and the grandkids to be there. That's like my mom's love language. So
yeah, that makes sense for sure. All right, cool. Give me another number.
Okay, so let's go with 24.
Oh, you don't want the 8? All right, 24. What is your favorite food?
My favorite food. So if any of my cousins were watching this, they would probably get a kick out of it. So it's definitely fried chicken. Yeah, man, I love my grandmother. My grandmother Thomas used to make me. I would go over to her house and she would just keep frying chicken because I would eat it so much. So definitely fried chicken from the South. I love fried chicken. Like that's
any particular fried chicken, or is hers? I mean, like, or is it like any type of fried chicken, or is it?
I wouldn't necessarily say there's any particular fried chicken. Like if it's good, I'll eat it.
Wow. So do you have a restaurant that you go to get fried chicken from?
So I mean, we normally go to Popeyes when we get fried chicken.
Okay.
My family's not really big into KFC. Now there's a barbecue restaurant in Dallas called Slow Bone.
Okay.
And they have some really good fried chicken.
Slow Bone. Okay.
It's a barbecue restaurant, but they got fried chicken. It's like flavorful. It's delicious. So
okay, Slow Bone. I'm gonna have to keep that one in mind. That's what's up. All right, give me one last number.
Okay, then we're gonna have to go with the other. We'll have to go with
8. What is the best job you've ever had?
The best job that I've ever had. So that's an interesting question because I've been at my current job. It'll be in June, 22 years.
Man,
it's crazy, right?
Yeah.
So I basically had like 3 jobs. So I cut grass as a kid. That was kind of like a side hustle. On military bases, they have a commissary. So I bag groceries, but that really wasn't a job. It's all tips. I worked at Winn-Dixie when it used to be in Texas. And then I did the census. So in Nacogdoches in 2000, when I was a college student, I did the census in Nacogdoches.
Oh, wow.
And it actually paid pretty well. But then right after I finished the census, I started working at the company that I work for now. So I would obviously say where I work now is my favorite place to work. And it's been a really cool ride because I've had the opportunity to live in India and work in different places and work and lead people from all walks of life, right? And connect with people and learn from them, right? I feel like I've become a better person with all the people that I've connected with over the years, whether it's been for a short time or for a long time, right? So that's my favorite place to work.
That's what's up, man. And just thinking about like when you told me in the beginning where you have been stationed and lived, it's as if God prepared you to be able to function with all these different ethnicities in your field and being able to somewhat relatable, right? So that's pretty interesting. That was my takeaway that I noticed that, you know, how you operate overseas and how you operate on land, they're the same, but you're able to connect with these individuals that don't necessarily come from the same background, but you're able to connect with them on a larger scale.
Yeah, I definitely think that, man, it's amazing how God works things out, right? In terms of like me living in different places. I think for me, people inherently want to, they want some basic things, right? They want to be able to provide for their family. And I think, you know, most people are good and decent people, right? And so I always approach people with that at the top of my mind, with my initial, you know, regardless of what their background is or what country they're from or what their ethnicity is, et cetera. So I always approach it, right? And approach people from that perspective and not try to make any assumptions, right? And that's not to say that I don't ever make assumptions. That would be a lie, right? Yeah. I really work hard to give people the benefit of the doubt. Yeah. So anyway,
that's me too. That's what's up. So we got 2 questions left. Okay. I want to get you out of here. But listen, I'm not the one that's telling you to stop talking. So that's all on you, bro.
Okay? Yeah.
I appreciate it. You know what I'm saying? It's been dope. So, okay. So second to last question is, which TV dad would you say you resemble the most? Personality, characteristics, looks, whatever the case may be, past or present?
Yeah. So that's interesting. Like one of my favorite shows, I'm not sure if you watch Blackish.
Yes.
Oh, Andre, right? And so the reason I really, you know, kind of connect with him and I don't know. It's really interesting because like he's a vice president at the firm that he works for, right? And that's kind of the role that I have right now. I'm a vice president, partner strategy at the company I work for, and this that dynamic of living in between worlds, right? Where you know, you kind of Blackish, right? And right where you're trying to you want to stay true to yourself, right? So I've always tried to stay true to myself, right? But like some of the themes and things that they talk through, I really relate to it because you know, upper middle class, and you're kind of between worlds in some sense, if that makes sense to you.
It does.
Where you're really trying to navigate and trying to figure out where you fit in, making sure that you stay true to yourself, but also exposing your kids and giving them the opportunity to see the world for what it is, and for them to make their own decision about like where they fit in and where they want to grow in life, right? And so also letting them know that the world is it's a whole opportunity for them, that they're not limited in terms of like what they see right now. So anyway,
that is dope. The whole world is an opportunity for them. You need to coin that phrase if you haven't. The world is a whole opportunity for them. That's pretty dope. And the last question is, how would you want to be remembered by your kids? What would you want them to say about you?
Man, that I prioritize them over everything else. Like that I did not put work before them. Now, obviously, my wife is going to come before them, right? You know, I got to put that relationship ahead of them. And obviously, you got to, you know, God comes first, and then your wife, and then your kids, right? So, but that I did not put anything before them, right? So, like work and other things and friends and stuff like that, that they were a priority in terms of like me connecting with them. So, like even this past year, I've tried to work really hard at trying to, like for Aiden, he's really into sports now. So figuring out ways where we can connect and go, you know, see a basketball game or whatever. Like that's really important to him. I need to do something with my daughter, right? So like she likes to get her nails done. So I need to figure out a way where we can go sit down and like go get our nails done. But I want them to look back and say like, Dad really, you know, I took her to Starbucks the other day because she loves Starbucks, that he really made a genuine effort to connect with us, right? And that he did not prioritize other things ahead of us. And I'm not saying that they would answer it that way right now, because sometimes it's, like I said, it's a balance, right? but I'm working really hard to grow in that area, and I want them to remember me for that. I instilled in them some good values, but also that I put them first ahead of other things.
That's what's up, man. This has been dope, bro.
Yeah,
man, this has been really good. I really appreciate the time. I knew that it was going to be a classic moment. You know what I'm saying? Before I even reached out, and you dropped the gems that I thought you would. You know what I'm saying? And so I appreciate you. You have the last words. What would you like to say to the people?
Well, first of all, Elijah, thank you for inviting me here, and I'm glad I had an opportunity for us to just sit here and chat. The time went by really fast, so that means we're having a good conversation. My thoughts and prayers continue to be with you and your family, and just I appreciate like how you're being so transparent with everyone as you're going through your journey. I believe that you're helping and blessing other people as you share with others the journey that you're on right now, and I just appreciate you as a person, and just thank you for the opportunity to be here.
Bless you, brother. I appreciate you too, man. Until next time, we out here. Deuces.